Alright, so this is a really quick video, which is going to be a first for me, but in regards to my previous video demonstrating the strength of the welded handle versus the full tang sword, a viewer had two really good ideas. Number one was to compare this test with the welded 1 1/8" handle to an actual solid piece of 1 1/8". I have measured this 17 inches, exactly as long as that one. I've got it welded down there and at the back, and I'm going to just weld a little plate here that I can hit it with the hammer right at the end, just like that one. And we'll see, I'll hit it 50 times and I'll see if it bends more or less than the one I already did there. Oh, and full disclosure, I do expect the previous one to be worse, probably slightly worse. The previous video I mentioned, I had just finished welding this when I started hitting it, and it was still a couple hundred degrees, and I'm guessing the heat would have weakened the steel very slightly, or somewhat at least. The other thing is, as I'm demonstrating here, when I ground off the weld, I ground off too much on purpose. Let's see. So you can see there is, here we go, get the right angle. There is a slight gap on both sides here. I think it's more prominent on this side. And you can see probably about a 1/16 of an inch on each side. So it's probably only, 1/16 on each side. I mean that this is only about an inch versus this being 1 1/8". So that will skew the results somewhat, but I expect them to be close at least. Oh, and if you're wondering why I did grind back too much, I simply didn't want anybody to be able to accuse me of skewing the test by leaving too much weld on the surface here and making this joint stronger than it normally would be. I wanted it to be kind of like worst case scenario. That's all. So here's the two pieces side by side after 50 hits, and the solid piece actually bent slightly more. So let's see how close this really is. So this thing has a, this is an angle finder, and it has an alternate 0. So I zeroed that out. Now let's put it on the curved part. (16.5 degrees) it looks like. So let's try it over here. (14). So the solid rod actually bent 2.5 more degrees than the welded one, and the only explanation I have is basically I hit them both 50 times, but with how much force, basically can't really quantify hitting with, I may use the same hammer at least, but who knows, I must have hit this one a little bit harder. They both got pretty banged up on the ends there. But I would say the results should be about the same. 2.5 degrees probably isn't a lot, especially when I wasn't factoring in the heat of this. And this one did get heated quite a bit, as you can see, because I had to re-weld it 3 times. Kept breaking off, and the welds, the clamps kept falling off and everything. This was easier to clamp because it's such a big, flat, heavy piece. But I'll say conclusion is they're about the same. I don't think 2.5 degrees is anything significant, especially when I wasn't factoring for the strength of the hits. Maybe I was feeling a little bit stronger today. Comparable, at least, I think we'll call it, for a non-scientific study. So the second good viewer suggestion I had was in regards to the Wallace sword here. In the last video when I tested it, I hit it on the flat, you know, going left to right basically, and that's the thinnest part of the metal. And realistically, that's not even that doesn't even make sense, because the sword would be striking things, you know, up and down, so you'd get the use of the thickest part of the metal. So I've clamped it 90 degrees from the original. I put a little plate on there. I'm not going to try to hit it at the very end. There's no way that little piece is going to hold anything, so I kind of welded it a little bit further up. It's certainly not 17 inches away, but this is supposed to be a, you know, real historical sword, so, and that's what I'm trying to compare. Let's see how it does. Well, that was a bit of a anticlimactic test there. I did the same 6 hits I did before. Didn't quite reach 90, but as you can see, it's just twisting up like crazy. So despite the extra material, you know, the 3/4 inch thick portion here, maybe 18, 19 millimeters, it's just too thin. Just not enough material to take any kind of real abuse. That's not to say that this sword is weak, or that I have any problem with it. I'm sure that this full tang is plenty strong for what the sword would be used for. It's just a visual illustration of the strength differences between, you know, a traditional full tang about this size and the gigantic welded handles that I put on. That's all. So, final thoughts here. Obviously this full tang got destroyed, but it's perfectly strong for what the sword would be used for. Nobody is going to be smashing things with a, you know, a historical or historically accurate sword. You know, you're going to be cutting mats or water bottles or target dummies, ballistic gel, that kind of thing. And this kind of handle is perfectly fine. As far as the crazy huge swords that may be used to smash big heavy things, it looks like the solid handle versus the welded handle, more or less a wash. I don't have anything against using a solid handle. I may at some point if it makes sense in the future. It's just the convenience and the need for accuracy results in these welded handles, and obviously they are more than sufficient for the job. So that's all. I hope you found this informative. Until next time. Thanks for watching.